Do you believe that a simple gesture of kindness can reveal secrets that were hidden for years? On the edge of a deserted road, Michael, poor, almost forgotten mechanic, was trying to fix the rusty engine of an old car when a luxury vehicle stopped before him. From the back seat, an elegant man slowly descended. What Michael didn't know was that this stranger was a disguised billionaire CEO, someone who carried a hidden life full of mysteries and a swing truth that no one could imagine. Michael wiped his face, sweat with hissed hands, dirty with grease. The client seemed impatient, but curious about the calm of the mechanic. There, between broken tools and the smell of burn oil, story began that would turn on two totally opposite worlds: wealth and daily survival. The waitress that watched from the nearby cafeteria swore to have recognized that mysterious man's face in a business magazine, but preferred to shut up. Before continuing, leave you like, comment what you would have instead of Michael, and subscribe not to miss any details of this story. Each interaction your helps bring more content like this. Michael had no idea that, by accepting to fix that car without charging anything, he would be opening a door that would change not only his fate, but also reveal a secret buried for decades. And it was that the stranger stared at him and said something that made silence weigh in the air. The luxury car. Headlights illuminated Michael's dark workshop like a makeshift stage. The mechanic raised his face, overshadowed by the shine, and saw the silhouette of a tall man impeccably dressed, opening the vehicle door. The contrast was stark. On the one hand, Michael's raw poverty, his grease-stained clothes and calloused hands. On the other, the impressing presence of someone who seemed to belong to an unreachable world. The man introduced himself in a firm voice. James, in surname at more details, just James. Waitress of the cafeteria in front, which watched the scene with alert eyes, felt a shiver. She was sure she had already seen that face in a business magazine, influential CEOs and billionaires, including, but your willed anyone like that being stopped in a cheap workshop in the middle of the night. There were secrets there, the hidden life he was trying to keep away from the spotlight. Michael, without suspecting the customer's true identity, leaned over the open hood and began to analyze the problem. Every second I felt James's eyes on him. Cold, calculating, like that of a boss used to running a room full of executives. But there in luxury, there were at security guards. Only the silence interrupted by the metallic sound of the tools. The car, the rare model that Michael had never even touched before, had a complex electric failure. James didn't seem concerned about time, but his expression made it clear that repair was in a hurry. "Can you solve tonight?" he asked. The voice was calm, but something. Perhaps urgency, perhaps fear. Michael took a deep breath. "I will try. I don't usually work for free, but this kind of service can take hours." It was at this moment that James approached even closer. Without blinking, he stared at the mechanic. "Don't worry about the payment now, just from it." The tone was not requited. It was orderly. "And you, Michael, accept the work without asking anything else? Or will you try to find out who really was that man who has come out of nowhere?" Michael continued, but something caught her attention. In the back seat, the fallen envelope looked out of place. Part of it was open, revealing the golden coat of arms of an international corporation. His eyes fixed there for seconds. James noticed and closed the door quickly, hiding the envelope of sight. "Focus on the car," said Dry. Waitress crossed the street with a cup of coffee to Michael. "It will need it," he whispered, looking from Sosleo to James. "This man doesn't seem to trust anyone." Michael thanked it, but couldn't ignore her tone. There was fear in story. "And you, seeing someone so enigmatic, risk confronting him." The minutes passed. Michael fought burned cables and rare pieces he never had in stock. He improvised, welding old connections, adapting wires of popular cars to try to return his life to that millionaire machine. James watched each movement, without moving an inch, if evaluating not only the skill, but also the soul of that man. It was then that James broke the silence. "Do you have family?" The question took Michael by surprise. He hesitated before answering. "There was a daughter, Emily. She died because I had no money to pay for her doctor." The workshop was absolutely silent. Waitress, which was still watching the door, covered her mouth with her hand. James looked away for a moment, and a trace of humanity seemed to cross his iron posture. Michael swallowed dry. He never talked about Emily with strangers. But something in that man made him feel that he needed to tell. Maybe it was the deep look. Maybe it was just the need to vent. James, in turn, seemed to fight a distant memory, something that stirred him. The poorly buried secret, shocking truth about to emerge. "And you?" Michael risked, trying to reverse the game. "Do you have family?" The silence that followed was uncomfortable. James kept his eyes fixed on the engine, but did not respond. His hand squeezed the jacket fist, almost in nervousness. There was something he didn't want to reveal. The hidden life that could not be exposed. There, the clock marked. Almost midnight when Michael managed to reconnect the engine. The powerful snoring filled the workshop and echoed along empty street. James first smiled, but it was a brief, almost forced smile. "You got it," he said, removing a high grade of money from his pocket. Michael shook his head. "In need, consider it in favor." The answer surprised James. He observed that humble man, broken by life, but still able to offshore something without waiting return. That was rare. That was dangerous. "And you, if you were in Michael's shoes, would you accept the money or would you refuse?" James slowly kept the note and put his hand on the mechanic's shoulder. "The favor are not always without reward," he murmured with a riddle in his voice. Before Michael could react, the man got into the car, turned on the headlights and left. Waitress ran to Michael, scared. "Do you know who he is?" he asked. Michael denied, his head confused. She hesitated but whispered, "This is not just a client." Michael froze. If it was true, what does a man like this one from alone, late at night in his forgotten workshop? The cold dawn wind entered the open door, bringing with it the feeling that something much bigger had started there. Michael looked at the floor and realized that in a hurry, James had dropped something near the bench. Gold card with his name in thin letters. Michael's heart accelerated. There was proof that the stranger was not the one who seemed to be. But before I could think of what to do, the sound broke the silence of the night. Steps approaching, heavy, deteriorated from the dark street. Who would be coming now? Michael bent down to collect the golden card forgotten by James. The name printed in elegant letters sparkled under the weak light of the workshop, James Harrison. He had heard that name before in disaffection television report. Harrison, yes, it was him. One of the most talked about CEOs in the country, the real relevant boss billionaire. But what would such a powerful man circulate alone at dawn in a broken luxury car? The answer, perhaps, was in the envelope that Michael had seen inside the vehicle. His curiosity spoke louder. With slow steps, he walked to the car still parked, that James had left him on just to test, and the hurry of the match made the rear seat remained messy. There was the envelope, fallen sideways, half open. Michael hesitated, open that would be invasion of privacy, but a part of him remembered that he had already lost everything. The daughter, the stability, the respect of her own family. What else could you lose? He helped the envelope with trembling hands. The roll was thick, expensive, with the same golden coat of arms seen before. Inside, several sealed documents with confidential markers. Michael swallowed hard. The heart was hitting so strong that he could have sworn waitress across the street willed hear. He discreetly pulled one of the leaves. And you, in his place, willed have the courage to look at what shouldn't. Or willed you return without seeing anything. Believing it is right, the first lines spoke of millionaire transactions in tax havens, secrets of a hidden life that should never go public. There were names of politicians, absurd figures, and references to charity projects that currently funioed as a fajes to divert money. Michael felt the sweat Dane by the neck. Shocking truth jumped before her eyes. James was not just Respect CEO, but someone involved in obscure schemes that could destroy careers and whole families. He closed the envelope quickly, keeping it against his chest. But then a female voice countered behind him. "You shouldn't have done that." Michael turned scared. Waitress, which accompanied everything in silence, had crossed the street. His eyes were wide, not by surprise, but of fear. "I'm seen this man before," she said in whisper, "and I know what happens to those who discover their secrets." Michael was paralyzed. The words echoed like a warning. The woman did not seem to talk about assumptions. There was the conviction in his voice, like someone who had already witnessed Harrison's power. "He thinks you in the dead daughter, in the exhausted wife, in her own miserable life. Is it better to hide that knowledge? Or could you use it a chance to change your destination? Have you ever been to someone like that? You knew someone you shouldn't, and had to choose between silent or reveal." Waitress approached, even more, almost begging, returning the envelope. "Pretending that you saw nothing is the only way to remain alive." Michael squeezed the object in his hands. "What if I can use it?" he asked, almost without thinking. Her gaze became even more distressed. "You don't understand. This man doesn't forgive. He has her and everywhere." Her words weighed on him like lead. The image of his dead daughter returned to mind, followed by his wife's tired face. Would it be fair to put it at risk for an immense decision? But before he could answer, the metallic sound echoed outside the workshop. Someone had knocked the door of James's car. Michael hid behind the bench, the envelope still in hand. Through the crack of the window, he saw two hooded figures examining the vehicle. They seemed to look for something. And they didn't take long to realize that the envelope was one of them, mercured roughly. "Boss won't like it." Michael's heart shot. Now he not only knew too much, but he had become to target. Waitress held your arm tightly. "If they find out that you have it, it's over." His breathing was irregular, almost out of air. What should you do? Hide the documents, deliver to men outside, or confront James when there was a chance? Each option seemed suicide, but time was running. One of the hooded began to approach the workshop door. Michael looked around, looking for a way out, anything he could use. His eyes fell on the golden card James had dropped. Maybe it was a club. Maybe it was just a reminder that the enemy was bigger than imagined. The man was already spinning the doorknob. Michael, on impulse, stuck the envelope inside a toolbox and hit the lid, hiding it in the last moment. Retreated, waitress, scared. The door opened slowly, ranging, revealing the shadow of the intruder. Michael did not know if he will survive that night. But one thing was right. The secret that now kept silently had the power to destroy a billionaire, an entire corporation, or history life. And it was right now that a cell phone vibrates in the invader's pocket, interrupting the tension. He answered fast, heard a few words, and without looking inside, "Order heist partner, come on." Boss changed the plans. The two disappeared in the darkness of the street. The relief lasted only seconds. Michael knew he was not saved. They will come back, and next time they would leave on witnesses. The mechanic took a deep breath, stared at waitress, and mastered. "Now there's no way back." But soon as he finished the sentence, strong light broke into the workshop, accompanied by the known snoring of the return of James that returned. Billionaire was back, and this time he didn't seem willing to hear excuses. James's car engine was still vibrates low when he got out again. Hista expensive shoes echoing on the workshop cement floor. Her eyes were two sharp blades penetrating Michael as if she could tear out every hidden thought. The mechanic took a deep breath, trying to keep calm, but the hidden envelope inside the toolbox seemed to weigh tons in his conscience. James approached slowly. "Did you move someone you shouldn't?" he asked in a firm voice, but without elevating the tone. It was not a man who needed to scream to impose fear. Michael swallowed hard. For a moment he thought to confess, return the envelope, and apologize. But his mind turned to Emily, his daughter. Her memory always emerged in the moment of greatest weakness, reminding him of everything he had lost. He looked away and murmured, "No, I just finished the service." Billionaire remained silent, observing it as a boss used to detecting executives' lies in millionaire meetings. Finally, he gave the half-enigmatic smile and leaned against the side of the car. Waitress, which was still near the door, watched the scene in absolute silence. Her gaze shouted, "Don't trust him!" Michael noticed and decided to break that suffish mood with the personal revelation. Maybe showing your pain was the only way to protect yourself. "I lost my daughter," he said suddenly. The voice came out hoarse, almost trembling. James raised his eyebrows, surprised by the unexpected confession. Emily. He was only 8 years old. The silence that followed was brutal. Even Waitress, which already knew pieces of history, kerned when he heard the name of the child. Michael continued, even without knowing if he should. "She got sick. Nothing couldn't be treated. But I didn't have the money to pay for the medicines. Neighbors all closed the doors." James said nothing. I just stared at the mechanic with a difficult expression to decipher. Maybe compassion, maybe discomfort. Michael noticed and was deeper. From, "You know what it is to see your family. Shat have because the world only respects who has money." I held her hand when it stopped breathing. And at that moment, I realized I was alone. And you, in Michael, have the courage to open up with such a ridge, or will you hide your pain so as not to show weakness? Billionaire looked away, staring at the dirty floor of the workshop. Something in the report seemed to have hit him. His lips moved almost imperceptible, as if he struggled against words he did not go to pronounce. Michael noticed the change. "You lost someone too, don't you?" he risked. For a moment James froze. Prolonged silence denounced more than any answer. There was a buried memory there, the painful secret that he was not ready to exhibit. Its hidden life, built on power and secrets, had cracks. Waitress broke the mood, almost a whisper. "Men like him do not speak of feelings, Michael. They hide everything after contracts and security guards." But even she seemed intrigued by Billionaire's unexpected reaction. James took a deep breath and, instead of responding to the provocation, changed the subject. "I'm sorry for Emily," he said finally. "A child should suffer for because of money." The phrase, simple, sounded strangely sincere. Michael was in double. Would it be facing a dangerous enemy or someone was? It was then that James took a step closer. What if you have a second chance? If you could give your wife, your family, the life that Emily deserved? Michael blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" James just smiled. "Maybe you find out soon. And well, you believe a man like that, or would it be even more suspicious of his intentions?" The mechanic felt a shiver. That vague promise seemed loaded with something bigger, something he didn't understand yet. But before he could ask, metallic noise echoed again. Outside, someone moved at the workshop door. James reacted fast, almost instinctive. He pulled Michael back and positioned himself ahead, as if he had trained his life to deal with threats. Billionaire didn't just look like a suit executive. There was the military rigidity in him, the frightening readiness. Waitress backed down. As the door slowly opened, tall man entered, using dark overcoat. His eyes traveled the atmosphere until he stopped in Michael. "We have pending issues," he said enigmatically. James squeezed the jaw. "Not now," he replied. The intruder laughed, the cold laugh. Boss doesn't like to wait. Michael felt the body freeze. The hidden envelope seemed to scream inside the toolbox. He knew this was the real reason for the visit. The stranger was not there by a chance. Waitress grabbed Michael's arm, whispering, "Don't say anything. If they know you saw the documents, it will be the end." Michael breathed heavily. Emily's tragedy had broken her defenses, and now she was at the center of a dangerous game. She didn't understand. James's eyes were fixed on the intruder, in AA confrontation posture. It was like watching two worlds colliding, the mechanic destroyed by life and Billionaire surrounded by secrets. The tension exploded when the stranger advanced a step inside the workshop. Michael, without thinking, said, "Leave my family out of it." The silence that followed was deafening. James slowly turned to him, and for the first time, the absolute control mask seemed to crack. It was at this moment that Michael realized his revelation about Emily had not only expired her pain, but she had also opened a wound in Billionaire himself. Wound that could change everything that would come next. And then the stranger raised a metallic object from his pocket. It was not monety or the contract. It was the something that made Waitress release a suffocated scream. The metallic object reflected the weak light of the workshop, but before anything happened, the resounding voice cut the air, loaded with mockery. "Look who we have here, the second mechanic, still trying to play professional." Michael closed his eyes for a moment, immediately recognizing the tone. It was David, owner of the rival workshop, the man who has spent years humiliating him and stealing customers. David entered, without asking for excitement, laughing loudly, ignoring both James and the hooded strange that was already retreating to the shadow. He wore a cheap jacket, but displayed an air of arrogance as if he owned the city. "Michael, you never learn, are you? Always pitching trash and serving people who shouldn't be here. Meanwhile, my workshop is full, invoicing growing. And you, if whole." Waitress stopped by the door, squeezed her lips, uncomfortable. She knew David too well, knew he loved to transform any weakness into the show. James, in turn, just watched in silence, his eyes analyzing every gesture of that new character. Michael took a deep breath. "I don't have time for your provocations, David." The rival laughed, approaching. "Time? You never had anything but failure. You didn't even have saved family. The shame. But even in that you failed." That phrase was like a blade stuck in Michael's chest. The air was missing. The girl's memories turned hard, and the shame mixed with anger made her hands shake. And you, in his place, have reacted or silent to avoid further pain. James narrowed his eyes, fixing his gaze on David. The rival's arrogance seemed to bother him, but remained motionless, like a boss waiting for the scene to unfold before intervening. David didn't stop. "And who is this here?" He pointed to James. "Lost customer. Let me guess, someone who has not yet found out that you are a failed." Michael closed his fists. "I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit David, but I knew that's exactly what he exacted." Waitress put her hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Don't of anything. Don't give him the pleasure." But David had on limits. He kicked one of the tools on the floor, the sound echoing through the shed. "From you know what is the difference between us, Michael. I understand the real world. The world of men who win. You live in this pathetic universe of sacrifice and kindness, thinking that changes something. But life is simple, ether. You are the predator, or the prey. James, silent hitherto, step ahead." "And what do you consider yourself?" he asked calmly. David gave the croaked smile. I'm what survives, what gets, unlike this trash here." Michael felt the blood boil. He couldn't stand it anymore. But at the same time, he knew that his pride was not only at stake, but also the secret hidden in the envelope, the watchful look of Waitress and James's enigmatic presence. And have you been through a something like that someone tried to destroy your dignity in front of everyone? Suddenly James approached David, his face a few inches from the rival. Billionaire spoke low, but his voice had the strength of assent. Funny. Often whoever thinks his predator finds too late that it was always just bait. David laughed, not understanding. And who do you think it's to talk to me like that? James didn't answer, just smiled almost imperceptibly. Waitress watched nervously. The if I had just realized something others didn't see. She was already suspicious of James's true identity, and that posture only reinforced. He was not an ordinary man. Michael, still dominated by anger, stepped forward. You won't say anything about my daughter anymore. His voice echoed firmly. David arched his eyebrow, surprised. Oh, just the failed one. Still has a voice. Let's see how far your courage goes. He turned to leave. But before crossing the door, he launched his last offspring. Michael, remember, in matter what you do, you will always be the man who lost everything, and nothing, even mysterious client, will change that. The silence that was after his departure was suffering. Michael was trembling, Waitress seemed about to cry, and James watched every detail, as if she was setting up an invisible puzzle. Suddenly, James broke the silence. He's wrong. Michael looked up, confused. What? He asked. James answered slowly, almost as if he wanted each word to be recorded. About you have nothing more. Sometimes, what seems loss is just the beginning of something bigger. Michael did not completely understand, but felt that there was more in that comment. Secret behind the tone, the veiled promise that seemed to carry both danger and hope. Waitress approached, lowering its voice. Michael, beware. This man, the way he faces anyone, even David, it's not normal. He keeps a lot of secrets. You don't see? There's a hidden life behind this suit, and if you do end up wrapped in something bigger than you think. Michael looked at James, and for a moment he believed to see something in his eyes, pain, perhaps regret. Something human hidden under the mask of power. But before he could ask, the sudden noise broke. The moment, tires braking abruptly outside, followed by hasty steps. 3 shadows appeared at the entrance of the workshop, blocking the exit, and among them, cold voice announced, "Boss wants answers, now." The 3 shadows at the workshop entrance made Michael back off instinctively, his heart shored, still echoing David's poisonous words. Waitress tightened his arm, almost begging for did not move. The men who emerged were different from ordinary customers, dark clothes, rigid posture, cold look, then were security or something even more dangerous. James showed at fear. He put himself in front of Michael, if he was the owner of the place, staring at the newcomers, calmly calculated. "Tell boss that I will deal with it personally," he said in a tone that left room for replica. The 3 men hesitated, exchanged quick looks, and after the few tense seconds retreated without question. The workshop door closed again, but the silence that was not brought relief. On the contrary, Michael was stunned. What was this? Who were they? What did you just do? James turned slowly, the firm look. Continue what you were doing. Michael blinked, confused. What? The car. Finish the job. Don't stop now. The words seemed simple, but they were heavy-loaded. Michael felt his body weak. After all that happened, after David, these men, after you almost admit that there is something to hide. James advanced 2 steps, approaching. His presence was overwhelming, like a boss used to controlling any room. You don't understand. If you stop now, you'll regret it. Not only for you, but for your family. Sometimes moving on is the only way to survive. Waitress, which watched with singing, approached hesitation. Michael, listen to. Men like him don't ask. They order. If he insists, it's because there is something bigger behind. Michael ran his hands through the dirty grease, desperate hair. I'm tired of fighting a world that only pushes me down. I lost Emily. I lost respect. I lost everything. It was at this moment that James bent down before him, breaking his posture of superiority for a moment. "Because you still breathe. Because life hasn't ended yet." His eyes burned with intensity. "You have the choice to give up or continue. And I'm saying, continue. Then well you in Michael, accept to insist not knowing where it will take, or will it abandon everything not to sink even more?" Michael was silent. Emily's image returned to mind. If I had fought more, could she be alive? Repentance was still an open wound. Perhaps, only perhaps, finishing that repair was more than repairing a car. It could be a chance to prove yourself that it was not yet defeated. He sighed and retread to the hood of the vehicle. The tools seemed to weigh twice in his hands, but James's firm look at him forced him not to stop. Waitress brought a flashlight and illuminated the engine. "If you are going to do it right," he said with a half smile. James remained silent, but there was something in his eyes that denounced more than simple interest. He wanted Michael to end, but not just for the car. Perhaps there were secrets linked to that vehicle, something Michael did not understand yet. While working, Michael risked, "You talk about losses as if you understand. Who you lost, James?" Billionaire looked away, the muscles of the face tense. This answer would not change anything now. Waitress raised the eyebrows, surprised by the evasion. Michael realized that there was a shocking truth, but was still locked. The clock advanced. Each tight screw seemed to echo like a countdown clock. Michael felt the pressure increase. Outside, Passos went and came. The world seemed to observe it, await its final decision. Suddenly the door was grinded again. They were not security this time, but David, who had returned. He clapped his hands slowly, mocking. "Still trying to impress? No matter how hard, Michael, you will always be just a failed meaning alien cars." Michael felt the anger climb, but Bethu he could answer. James went on. "He is not failed." His voice cut the air as blade. David laughed, incredulous. "Ah, of course. The mysterious millionaire defending the poor. What a pathetic scene." James approached a few inches from David's face. "You don't understand. True failure is not losing everything. It's never having anything worth losing." The silence that followed was suffocating. David retreated to step, disarmed by the sentence. Waitress looked from each other, not believing what I saw. Michael, in turn, felt something strange, a mixture of hope and fear. He returned to the engine, and with the final spin of the ignition key, the car roared with renewed power. The sound filled the workshop, breaking the heavy weather. James smiled, for the first time genuinely, but this relief was short-lived. Because, as soon as the engine came to life, Michael noticed a detail that made him freeze. Inside the panel, hidden between the cables, there was a small electronic symbol flashing in red. It was not part of the car. And by the look that James cast, he also knew what that meant. The engine worked, but now there was a new threat inside the workshop, something that turned that repair into something much more dangerous than Michael could never imagine. Michael couldn't sleep that night. Even after James got out with the car, even after David disappeared, cursing it and the steps of mysterious men ceased on the street, the workshop still seemed to throb with invisible echoes. The electronic device hidden on the panel burned your mind. He told nothing to Waitress when she left, afraid to drag her to something that already beyond what he could bear. He just closed his doors and walked home, exhausted and restless. When he opened the door, his wife Jessica was waiting for in the room. Her gaze was the reflection of the weight he carried, Conan mixed with fatigue. "Michael, you are weird. What happened this time?" He shook his head, unable to translate in words everything he had witnessed. I just replied, "Things I can't explain, but I will solve." Deep down, he knew he was lying. Nothing was resolved. On the contrary, the remaining simple life was crumbling faster than he could contain. The next morning, the sun had barely emerged when they knocked on the door. Michael thought it was the dairy or some neighbor, but when he opened, he saw an elegant woman in formal clothes who completely detached from the humble neighborhood. The jump of her shoes was glowed on the cracked asphalt. "Mr. Michael?" he asked, his voice firm but polite. He nodded, surprised. "Yes, who are you?" "My name is Sarah. I work directly to Mr. Harrison." Michael's heart shot. James Harrison, billionaire. The man who has already turned a nightmare in his life in less than 24 hours. What does he want with me? Sarah did not answer immediately. Just extended a black envelope, scelled with the same gold coat that Michael had seen in the car. "He asked me to deliver this personally. It's an invitation, and he insists that the Lord will attend." Michael held the envelope with hesitant hands. His weight seemed much larger than a few grams of paper. Jessica appeared after him, suspicious. "Who is this woman, Michael? What's going on?" Sarah cast a brief look at Jessica, but kept her neutral tone. "Mr. Harrison prefers to talk to him directly. Everything will be explained there." Jessica frowned. "This doesn't sound well. Michael, don't go. And willed you, in his place, open that envelope and accept the invitation, or willed burn it wit look back?" Michael closed the door and took the envelope to the kitchen. Jessica followed him, distressed. He hesitated for long seconds before breaking the golden seal. Inside, there was only one sheet, but the words were straightforward. "Tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning. Bring yourself only. Address, Harrison Tower, Walk 52. Your life will never be the same." Michael read aloud, with each sentence the disbelief growing in Jessica. "This is crazy. You can't go to the tower of such a man alone. What if it's a trap?" "What if it's my chance?" Michael replied. "You know we have nothing. Neither future nor perspective. Maybe he wants to offer me something. Maybe he wants to thank for the car." Jessica stared at him with tears in her eyes. "Or maybe you want to silence you because you discovered something you shouldn't. Have you ever thought about it? And our family, Michael, we haven't lost enough?" Emily's memory crossed like a knife. He took a deep breath. "I know, but maybe it's precisely because I need to go." Sarah, still stopped on the sidewalk, seemed to watch the house carefully. Michael approached the window and noticed that she spoke on her cell phone, low if reporting about each movement. The cold traveled his spine. Who was, in fact, that woman? Faithful assistant or guardian of secrets? He closed the curtain and turned to Jessica. "I can run away forever. If he wants to see me, I will. Maybe that goes us answers." Jessica shook her head, defeated. "Then promise that you realize any danger, you will get out of there immediately." Michael nodded. "But inside, I knew that once inside James Tower, there may be no way out." That night, sleep again didn't come. The invitation was resting on the kitchen table as constant reminder that something was approaching. Michael tried to imagine what billionaire wanted him. Thank you? Anger? Or were there more secrets behind that hidden life that he could barely begin to understand? In the morning, he put on his best clothes, which meant only a clean shirt and pants without visible patches. Jessica accompanied him to the door, the eye loaded with fear. "Go back to me, Michael. Don't from crazy things." He kissed his forehead. "I come back. I promise." But what walking he was on the street? Question burned his mind. James saw him like an ally, or as threat. On the way, he crossed again with the cafetiere waitress. She noticed her worried expression and asked, "You received it too, didn't you?" Michael stopped, astonished. "What you mean, too?" She lowered her voice. "He has done it before. He called ordinary people into his tower. Some have returned different." The shock toured Michael's body. "Why did you never tell me that?" "Because no one believes in me," she replied with a dark look. "But now you will see for yourself. Just remember, not everything that seems gentility is really gift." Michael followed, but the heart was at war. The invitation now seemed more a sentence than an opportunity. When he finally spotted the golden tower that cut the sky, his breath failed. The imposing building, reflected the morning light as if it were a lighthouse for Theos what sought power, but Michael felt like the entrance of a dead end. And that's exactly when he has realized Sarah was waiting for him at the glass door, smiling as if he knew he wouldn't have the courage to refuse. The mechanic squeezed the envelope in his pocket and, without realizing it, whispered to himself, "Maybe this is my last chance, or my last mistake." And when he took the first step tower, the tower's entrance, a figure that should not be there crossed his way, blocking it before arriving. Michael froze when he saw the figure blocking his entrance. The man was tall, tight beard, especially dark. The cold look crossed him, as if he knew every detail of history. He didn't say a word, he just watched him silently before walking slowly across the street. But the message was clear. There were eyes everywhere, and any false step could be watched. Michael stopped before the tower's glass door and felt an overwhelming weight on his chest. The building shone as a promise of power, but to him it seemed a mausoleum of secrets. The memory of Waitress echoed in his mind. People who entered there were not always coming back. Billionaire Harrison was not an ordinary man. He was a boss of an empire made of fortune and, perhaps, of lies. Sarah still awaited him, impassive, with smile contained from those what knew more than he should. "Is it ready?" asked. Michael opened his mouth to answer, but nothing left. The sweat dripped by his neck. Suddenly, the weight of the decision seemed greater than anything I had ever lived. He turned and began to walk fast in the opposite direction. On the way back, the heart beat like a drum. What was about? Sign up to the hands of a billionaire surrounded by secrets, hidden devices, and missing people? No, I couldn't. His daughter had already been the victim of the injustice of life. He will not put Jessica at risk now, but soon as he crossed the corner of his street, he saw his wife on the porch, waiting. Jessica ran to him as soon as she noticed her to be Trimmer's. "You didn't eat in?" Michael shook his head. "I can't, Jessica. That's crazy. Harrison is dangerous. I don't know what he really wants from me. This invitation is not gift. It's trap." She took a deep breath, trying to control anxiety. "Michael, I understand your fear, but maybe that's exactly what we need. You don't see? For the first time in years, someone noticed you have noticed you. You can finding that changes our life, that brings justice to Emily. You're back." He covered his face with his hands. "What if I don't come back? What if it's like Waitress and I disappear like others?" Jessica touched his arm, firm. "From you. Think living this way is really living. We are already stuck in a life without a future. You always blame yourself for our daughter's death. Maybe that's the chance to turn pain, something, and you, in his place, risk his own security in search of answers. Or will you choose to protect your family by staying in the shadow forever?" Michael felt his wife's words. Cross the fear armor he was carrying. He thought of Emily, the smile he will never see, in his small hands that eased when he still dreamed of a different future. If I could have the something so that the tragedy was not in vain, it might be worth risking. Jessica held her face with hands. "You're not alone. I'm here waiting, but don't give up now." Michael's eyes burned. He hugged her tightly, feeling for the first time in years a thread of courage to light up. Perhaps it was time to face Billionaire and its secrets. He walked again, this time slower but determined. The golden tower in the long looked like a threat, but also a puzzle that needed to be unraveled. Upon arriving at the door, Sarah was still there, as if he knew he will return. "Did you decide?" asked, arising the eyebrow. Michael took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, I'm going in." Sarah smiled discreetly, paving the way. But Beto crossing the door, Michael threw one last look back into the ordinary street he left. There was his simple life, full of pain but still familiar. Ahead, a maze of power, where each step could reveal a shot truth or a destination with a return. He crossed the entrance, and the immiatory sensation was imprisonment. The cold air of the lobby contrasted with the heat from outside. Discreet guards watched him. Beauty said nothing. Sarah walked ahead, guiding him to the elevators. Michael felt the doubt come back, heavy as lead. "Sarah, what exactly James want with me?" She did not respond immediately. He presiled the elevator button and only then spoke, looking at the doors that would close on them. "He believes you have something no one else has, honesty, loyalty, qualities that can change everything." Michael frowned. "But I'm nobody, just a bankrupt mechanic who lost her daughter." Sarah turned to him, and her eyes shone with an unexpected intensity. "That's exactly what makes it different. Harrison doesn't trust successful men. Trust who has lost everything and still stand up." The phrase resonated deep inside Michael. For the first time, he realized that perhaps his pain had value to someone who lived surrounded by wealth and masks. The elevator doors opened on the 52nd floor. The corner was quiet, luxurious, with glass walls that revealed the whole city. Sarah got a gesture for him to advance. Michael walked every heavy step, every thought shouting to go back. But it was late. The door of a salon opened slowly, and inside, sitting in front of an impassing table, was James Harrison, the billionaire with impenetrable eyes. "Welcome, Michael," he said, with a smile that hid secrets than revealed. And at the same moment, Michael realized that, when accepting to enter, he had crossed a line from which he could, in the Lonar, return. The lounge on the 52nd floor looked more like a movie set than a meeting room. Glass walls revealed the whole city, skyscrapers that shone like jewelry under the morning sun. The floor was dark marble, reflecting the cold lights of the ceiling, and in the center there was a long table of unthinkable wood, with chairs that looked more like modern thrones. James Harrison, the billionaire, which until then Michael only turned as a mysterious shadow, was sitting at the headboard. She didn't wear a suit this time, just a white-sleeved shirt, but her presence was still overwhelming, that of a boss that didn't external symbols to impose respect. Michael entered with hesitant steps, each tense muscle. Sarah closed the door behind him and positioned himself discreetly next door. The air seemed heavier inside if the walls kept secrets that no one had ever dared to reveal. "Welcome to the heart of my empire," said James, the calm voice, but loaded with something Michael could not define. Pride, contempt, interest. Michael kept his eyes low. "I shouldn't be here. I'm just a mechanic." James' release, Lort laugh. "Exactly. This is what makes you interesting. Men who have not belonged to this world have the clearest view of it." Waitress was right. Nothing in that situation seemed a simple thanks. James had not invited him to pay in favor, but for something much bigger. "And you, instead of Michael, willed you have added to eat in or have return home with, out locking back?" James got up and walked to the window. From above, he pointed to the city below. "See this? Thousands of people living lives they haven't chosen, all stuck to a system that only few control. I'm one of those few. But deep down, even those at the top need someone who reminds them what it means to fall." Michael felt to chill. "Why do I?" James turned, his eyes fixed as blades. "Because you have already lost everything, and yet it remains standing. It makes you dangerous and valuable." Sarah handed a folder to James, which opened her slowly and spread to the table. Michael saw documents, photos, reports. He recognized his own face in dislikes, captured at times he didn't even recall. There was his workshop, his house, even Jessica on the porch. Your stomach rolled. "You were watching me." James nodded without guilt. "Always Vigio who interests me. You carry something you don't realize. Honesty that can't be bow, but also a weakness that can be explored." Michael closed his fists. "This is crazy. I'm not a game of a game." James approached, putting one of the photos before him. It was Emily, her daughter, smiling in an old image. Michael's heart almost stopped. "Don't talk about her. "I know about Emily," James said in a low voice. "I know what happened, and I know the injustice that killed her was not your fault, but of a system that only respects power. I also lost." James's gaze broke for a moment. There was something more, the deep secret, the hidden life that is hidden from his allies. Michael felt anger mixed with curiosity. "Who did you lose?" James did not answer. Immediately, he just closed his eyes for a second and murmured, "Someone who should never have died." The silence was suffocating. Sarah looked away, if that we were a wound forbidden to be exposed. Michael realized that there was a shocking truth behind the billionaire facade, but was still out of reach. James retread again. "You have a choice, Michael. You can go back to your miserable life, intend in this have happened, or you can accept my invitation to something bigger." Michael took a deep breath. "And what exactly do you want from me?" Billionaire smiled enigmatically. "I want you to fix something much more important than a car. I want you to fix a failure in the world. But first, I need to make sure you are the man I believe to be." Sarah put a different envelope on the table. As he opened, Michael found instructions and an address. Nothing more, just short but straight lines. "Go there tonight alone," said James. "If you come back, I'ma trust you." Michael frowned. "What if I am not? So we'll never see each other again, and maybe one day someone comes to charge the price of their refusal." The warning sounded less as a threat and more as an inevitable destination. "And willed you in Michael, accept the mission or abandon every day to save your own life?" Michael took the envelope, hesitating. Jessica was right, that could be a trap. But part of him felt that if it were not, it could be the only chance to change something in his existence marked by losses. James turned his back, ending the conversation. "Sarah will take you to the exit. The decision is yours. But remember, some invitations have not come twice." Michael walked down the hallway, the envelope burning in his hands. The elevator slowly descended, and every passing floor seemed a deeper step in an abyss. When he arrived at the ground floor, Sarah stared at him. "He doesn't make that kind of offer to anyone. Think well, Michael. Sometimes getting into this world is dangerous, but refusing it maybe even works." Michael went out to the street, breathing the polluted air of the city as if it were the first time. The Golden Tower shone behind him, but now it didn't just look like a building. It was golden trap, full of secrets that could swallow anyone. When turning the corner, he found something that made his blood freezing. Leaning against his door, Jessica held the same envelope he carried, and the detail that made him shudder was simple but devastating. That envelope was not delivered by Sarah. Michael's heart fired when he saw Jessica holding an envelope identical to what James had given her. He ran to her, removing the roll of her hands with disbelief. "Where did you get this?" he asked, panting. Jessica was pale, her voice almost a whisper. "A man left at the door. It wasn't that assistant, Sarah. It was another. He said nothing, just left." Michael opened the envelope and found that the content was different from his. Instead of instructions and address, there was only one phrase written in firm letters. "How far willed you go to protect yours?" He felt poisoned inside. Harrison was playing with him, testing his boundaries, placing his family in the center of a game that seemed to have no clear rules. "And willed you, in his place, confess to your wife how much you were already involved or hide to spare her?" Michael tried to speak, but failed. Jessica held her hand, squeezing hard. "I'm afraid, Michael. This man, I feel he knows too much about us." The mechanic took a deep breath, hiding the second envelope in his pocket. "Trust me, just a little more. I'm solve." That night, unable to resist, Michael followed the address indicated in the original invitation. The path led him to an abandoned warehouse in the industrial zone, away from the city's lights. The place was deserted except for a single lamplit in the center, illuminating a chair. About her cell phone. His heart was beating out. He approached hesitantly and the vibrated device. In attending, James's unmistakable voice echoed. "Good night, Michael. Before continuing, I need you to understand something. Everything that happened here, every detail, every date, it was no chance. You were being torn." Michael was silent, the heavy breath in the ear of Billionaire. James continued, "From the moment you decided to fix my car with charging, I wanted to see far it will go to your honesty. Picture, Mem capable of facing something bigger?" The anger went up as fire. "You played with my life, used Emily's memory as if it were part of the game." James sighed on the other end of the line. "It's not a game, Michael. It's survival. The world, you see the surface. Below it, there are secrets, pacts, and betrayals that shape everything. Can fit." Michael looked around, the warehouse echoing with the suffering silence. "What if I refuse?" James's voice hardened. "Refusing is not an option. It's already inside. Your wife has already received an envelope, hasn't they? They always receive, not to threaten, but to measure. Family is the greatest weakness of a man, or greatest strength. Michael felt his legs weakened. Jessica's image holding the roll back to mind, she having the idea of the abyss she were entering. "You don't have the right to use it," said Michael, almost screaming. James responded calmly, "Scary. I'm not upfound it. I'm all carry a hidden life. Yours is marked by the loss of Emily, mine for things I cannot tell you. Coming." The cell phone vibrated again, and a notification came. It was a photo. Michael looked and felt the floor disappear under his feet. It was Jessica, taken that same afternoon on the porch of home. "From you watch me even inside my life?" he asked, the broken voice. "I protect him," said James. "The same men who have appeared in the workshop can come back. They are not mine. They work for another boss, some who makes it in the effort to destroy anyone who is in their way. It is." Michael squeezed his cell phone against his chest. The mind spinned, the mix of fear and anger. If it was true that there was a larger enemy, then it was surrounded by something that didn't even understand. "So, tell me at once what you want from me?" James was silent for few seconds until his voice returned firmly. "I want you to find out the truth that not even my core, inside the car panel you fixed, there was someone. No, it won't be corrupt." Michael felt the weight, bent over his shoulders. He was not a researcher, not spy. It was just a man who has lost his daughter and lived from minor repairs. And it was now launched at the center of a board that involved billionaires, secrets, and conspiracies. And you, if you were in his place, will you accept to deepen more or try to exhaust, even though you know the family will be at risk? Before it could answer, the warehouse door suddenly opened. Strong light invaded the space, blinding it for a moment, echoed in the concrete steps, approaching fast. Michael turned, his cell phone still in his hand, but could not see the face of the person who came in. The only thing I heard was a cold voice. "You already know too much, Michael, and now there's no return." The light that invaded the warehouse blinded Michael for a moment. Her heart was shooting, the steps echoing, getting closer and closer. He raised his cell, if it were a useless shield against whatever was to eat. Then a figure crossed the clarity. It was not an enemy, but James Harrison, billionaire himself, walking as if he had planned that moment from the beginning. "It's okay, Michael," said James with a serene but firm tone of voice. The men who accompanied him were in the shadows, watching silently. Michael stepped back, suspicious. "Have you tracked me right just to surround me? I'm not part of your game." James raised one hand, asking for calm. "It's not a game. It's my life, and maybe soon yours too." Michael breathed fast, remembering Jessica's photo who had received minutes before. "So tell me soon." James approached until he was a few feet from him. His eyes, for the first time, were not only hard, but also a glow of memory. "Because, many years ago, I was you. The phrase fell like a lightning. Michael laughed nervously. You? Billionaire used to gala dinners, hunted by business magazines. Was it like me, poor with nothing? James gave the slight smile, but it was smile loaded with pain. Yes, I grew up in a dirty workshop, fixing cars with old pieces, as you do today. My dad drank until falling. My mother worked like a two-shift waitress to support family. There in future, just survival. The silence took over the warehouse. Michael felt the weight of those words. For the first time, the impenetrable boss let part of its hydrate den life. I also lost someone, James continued, the most serious voice, my younger brother. The disease was simple, treatable, but we had no money to the hospital. He died in my arms. Michael shuddered. Emily's memory burned her chest. He saw behind the billionaire mask a man broken by the same injustices that had destroyed histo life. That's what turned me on, James said, getting even closer. I used every humiliation, every night of hunger, every loss as fuel. He built my empire from pain, but along the way I realized something. The world I helped shape is as the one who destroyed us. It. Michael shook his head. I'm not like you. I have no moe, I have no power, I don't know how to play at that level. James then put his hand in his pocket and took a small metallic object. Silver key, bright, even in the weak light of the warehouse. He reached out to Michael. You have something more valuable than money, Michael. You have honesty that not all billion in the world can buy. This key is the first proof of that. It opens a place that does not belong to lawyers, politicians, or executives. Michael hesitated, staring at the key. Why? Why give me this? James responded, without blinking. Because I want to see how far you can go. This key can open a door for your future, or to your ruin. It will only depend on how you choose to use it. And you, if you were in Hister Ace, accept the key without question or throw her out, afraid of what she really means. Michael spread his hand slowly and took the key. The metal was cold, but it seemed to throb on your skin. The strange feeling traveled his body, fear, but also hope. James put his other hand on his shoulder. Do you think it was coincidental to find me that night? It wasn't. Michael felt the floor spin. The billionaire, which until then was just an unreachable figure, now confessed that they shared the same origin, the same wound. That was a shocking truth. The silence was broken by Sarah's voice, which had come from the shadows. Time is running out, James. They already know. Michael turned confused. Who knows what? James looked at him seriously. That I chose you. Michael swallowed hard. Now there was no doubt. I was stuck in something much bigger than I imagined. James released his shoulder and walked away, kept the key, protect it, and remember, don't trust anyone, not even me. Michael was palsied, the key, weighing in his hand like lead. What does that mean? James has grinned an enigmatic smile, already turning out to leave the warehouse. It means that you are about to find that people closest to you also have secrets. Add who can save your life, other who can destroy it. The door knocked behind him, leaving Michael alone with the key and mind collapse. It was then that cell phone vibrates again. Anonymous message appeared on the screen. If you really believe James is your ally, use the key and you will see the truth. But beware. The truth may be your sentence. Michael felt his heart stop for a moment. Someone else knew. Someone who watched as much the James. And before he could take a deep breath, the sound of steps behind him echoed in the empty warehouse. It was not James, nor Sarah. It was another presence, getting closer and closer. The steps behind Michael echoed strong in the warehouse. He turned suddenly, with the silver key still tight in his hand, ready to face who to go. But there in the one, only the sound of the wind crossing the broken windows. The cold traveled his spine. He was alone, but he didn't feel alone. With his heart. Rapidly, he came out as fast as he could. Upon arriving home, Jessica ran to meet her. "Michael, are you okay? You look different." He just showed the key. "James gave me that. I said it's the beginning of something, but I don't know what." Jessica frowned, confused. "Key for what?" Michael sighed, trying to organize the whirlwind within him. "I don't know, but I'll find out." The next morning, the letter arrived by mail, without sender, only with a handwritten address. Michael recognized the same golden coat of arms recorded on the paper Sarah had delivered. The message was clear: use the key. He and Jessica were together, guided by a mixture of fear and curiosity. The way took them to the outskirts of the city, where the buildings were giving way to green hills. After few kilometers, gigantic iron gate emerged before them. In the center, an ancest lock gleamed under the sun. Michael felt his breath fail. He took the key out of his pocket and, with trembling hands, and insixed in the lock. The click echoed loudly, if it were thunder in his mind. The gate opened slowly, revealing a stone road flanked by centuries, gold trees. At the end of it, huge mansion, Almata Palace, came up with tall windows and white marble facades. Jessica took her hand to his mouth in shock. "Michael, is this Oz?" He could barely believe what he saw. The couple walked to the main entrance, and spinning the golden dory knob, the heavy door opened. The interior seemed out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, the corns were covered with red carpets, and invaluable value paintings adorned the walls. James's voice echoed in Michael's memory. "This key opens his future, or his ruin." Jessica explored the rooms, with eyes shining with hope. "Michael, we can live here. It changes everything, finally. Worthy home, different life." But Michael couldn't get rid of the feeling that there was more behind. That was not just a gift. It was a trap, the secret that had not yet been revealed. And will you, in his place, accept the mansion without thinking twice, or willed it suspect the price hidden so much generosity? In the following days, their lives have become. Jessica decorated the rooms, smiled when she saw the kitchen full of new utensils, dreamed of a safe future. Rich neighbors began to appear, curious with the new residents. For the first time in years, Michael saw his wife smile effortlessly. But something bothered. By exploring the mansion's basement, Michael found a locked door. He tried to open with the key, but it didn't work. In her top was the same golden coat of arms. At the same moment, he remembered the warning, "Don't trust anyone, not even me." He returned to the main floor, trying to act normally, but the double eroded his mind. Why give an entire mansion to an ordinary man? Why hide rooms locked inside it? There was the hidden life linked to that place, and Michael knew that sooner or later he will have to face. On a silent night, while Jessica slept, he heard footsteps in the hallway. He got up fast, but found on one, only an old portrait at the end of the corner he had never noticed before. James, as young man, alongside a man Michael did not know. The picture seemed to observe it, like a hand-painted secret. Waitress from was the first to visit the couple. She entered, amazed, but her gaze soon changed. "Michael, you don't understand. This place, it has been the scene of horrible things. People who came here before, they disappeared." The shock hit him as stab. "What are you saying?" She lowered her voice. "James doesn't give gifts for no reason. Every detail of your life, your family, is linked to something bigger. This mansion is just the surface. There are secrets buried here that you can imagine." Jessica heard part of the conversation and was scared. "Michael, maybe it's better to return. I don't want to lose you too." Michael looked around, feeling the weight of the luxurious walls. What if it's true? What if this place hides the shocking truth he wants me to find out? That night, unable to sleep, Michael walked to the basement again. The locked door seemed to call him. He leaned his ear and swore he heard a muffled sound, such the voices or machines working. The silver key spun between his fingers, cold and heavy. He knew the mansion was a poisoned gift, but also a unique chance. Suddenly, a beat echoed through the house, strong, insist, if someone were at the door. Jessica woke up scared. Michael ran up, and as he opened, he found a black envelope thrown on the floor. Inside, there was only one sentence written in red letters. Now of you live within the truth you have sworn not to want. Are you ready to open it? The wind entered the door, turning off the hallway lights. Michael stood, the key in one hand and the ticket in the other, not knowing if he had just won a home or a death sentence. The first days in the mansion were like a strange dream. Jessica seemed to have reborn, finally smiling effortlessly, walking through the huge corns, as if he had found a piece of peace after years of fighting. She got the rooms, organized the furniture, talked about dinners and how they have finally built a family safe. Michael, however, did not share the same tranquility. Each wall of that mansion seemed to hide something. He will catch himself, watching histo paintings, playing the furniture, feeling that everything carried stories that were not Heisten. The gate, the golden coat of arms, the locked basement. Everything shouted that that gift was price. In the main room, the portrait of James Harrison, young man, stared at him day and night. Billionaire always seemed to be there, even absent. Michael began to wonder if the portrait was just a souvenir or a silent message. This place is still mine. Jessica tried, calm it down. Michael, we need to stop suspiciously. Maybe James did that because he saw something on you. Maybe he just wants to return. Michael sighed. No one gives a whole mansion for free. He is a boss, Jessica. Men like that always expect something in return. And well, you, in his place, accept to live this new life in peace or investigate to the end, risking losing everything again. On a rainy afternoon, Michael explored the gardens when he found a hidden greenhouse in the back. Inside, besides the cared-for plants, there was the small iron box with the same golden coat. The key he had received fit perfectly. The click sounded like a revelation. Inside, there was only one letter, written by hand. The mansion kept more than walls. Its true function is what was buried. When ready, open the locked door of the basement. Until then, live, note, find out who can trust. Michael kept the letter, the heart accelerated. The basement was, again, a constant call, the puzzle that could not ignore. That night, the cafeteria waitress knocked on the door. Jessica was surprised, but Michael received her immediately. The woman looked nervous, her eyes restless. Michael, you don't understand what this place means. I'm seeing others brought here. Some have tried to investigate, none left the same. You need to decide, you go to live the illusion or face the secrets, Harrison Hiron. Michael closed the door behind her and asked in a low voice, what do you know about the basement? She hesitated, looking around as if the walls could hear. The mansion is not just a house, it's a file. Here are evidence, contracts, records that cold overthrow half of the most powerful men in the country. Politicians, businessmen, judges, and you. Now you are sitting right in the center of this maze. Jessica, listening behind the stairs, entered the conversation. Michael, I knew this was never to gift. He's using us. Waitress's face contrasted. It's not that simple. James doesn't trust anyone, but somehow he trusted you. Maybe because you, like him, have already lost everything. But hides a hidden life, always has a price to cartoon. Michael looked at his wife, then to the visitor. So is this mansion just a gold trap? Waitress took a deep breath. It's a prison with beautiful walls, but it can also be a weapon if you know how to use the secrets that are inside. The following silence weighed more than any word. Have you ever been, though, something like that? What looked like a gift brought together an impossible burden to carry? In the following days, Michael began to notice things he didn't realize before. discreet cameras installed in the corners of the corns, doors that closed alone, lights that lit even with no one around. It was as if the house watched him all the time. Jessica tried to maintain the routine, but the tension beaten them grew. "Michael, I don't want to live in fear. Either we choose to believe that we can be happy here, or return this key before it's late." Michael held her hand. "I can return, not yet. I need to understand what he wants from me. I need to know the truth." In a silent dawn, he woke up with a noise coming from the basement. He took the key, lit a flashlight and descended the stairs, each step echoing in his chest like a warning. The golden door was there, intact, but this time it seemed different. He felt that if he turned the key, nothing would be like before. His hand trembled. The cold metal of the key seemed to throb against its fingers. He leaned his ear at the door and swore he heard muffled voices, as if old conversations echoed on the other side. But before she could turn the key, Jessica appeared at the top of the stairs, scared. "Michael, stop. Don't of it now. We don't know what's inside." He retreated, keyed the key. "You're right, but one day I will have to open it." When then returned to the bead, they found something that wasn't there before, a new envelope on the bed. Inside it, the single black and white photography. In it came James Harrison Young, next to someone who made Michael's heart freeze. It was the portrait of his own father, smiling next to Billionaire, decades earlier. Michael dropped the picture to the floor. That changed everything. His family was already linked to James long before that night in the workshop. And at that moment, he understood that the mansion was not just a gift. It was the return to a family secret that he has never imagined to exist. Michael remained sitting on the floor, the photography still shaking between his fingers. The father's face, next to James Harrison Young, was proof of a hidden connection that crossed decades. Nothing in your life had been chance. The mansion, the key, the invitation, even the meeting in the workshop, everything seemed to have been designed before it was born. But what did this connection mean? What else did you know about your family? While the heavy silence of night filled the corridors, Michael realized that this revelation was not the end, but only the beginning of something much bigger. The next step could change, not only his life, but also the fate of all he loved. If this story has moved you, subscribe to the channel. Leave your like, it is very important. Comment, "The Scent. I watched till the end." And don't miss the next video that is already on the screen. It contains that sequence.